Fans, welcome to another edition of the Great North Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and I'm pleased to welcome a man who has experienced success in the professional wrestling business in Ohio Valley Wrestling, Ring of Honor, and WWE, perhaps most known for being one half of the Dick's tag team on the SmackDown brand, Mr. Tank Toland. Tank, thank you very much for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Now, growing up, were you a fan of the wrestling business? And if so, did you follow any particular companies or territories per se?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was a kid, I started watching wrestling probably around the age of, I'd say, 9, maybe 8, 9 area. Started watching around then. I was a small, little scrawny guy, and I had a couple of buddies who were really into it, and they're these twin brothers that became two of my best friends, and they started watching when I was at one of their sleepovers, and I was like, "Whoa, what's this?" And they introduced me to the whole wrestling world, and it was during the the big '80s time with Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik and Roddy Piper and Jimmy Superfly Snuka, that and Macho Man, of course. So that kind of got me into it, and before you know, we're practicing all the wrestling moves in their house and throwing each other onto the bed and all that kind of stuff, suplexing each other, stuff that that you're told not to do at home, of course. But yeah, so I mean, I started from the time I was a little kid, and but like once I saw that, I kind of just got instantly hooked on it. And being a small, short little guy that was picked on a lot in my younger years, I kind of really gravitated towards it because I saw them as being like larger than life, kind of almost like real life superheroes, that were kind of going in there and battling against the bad guy. And I was like, I want to be that one day because then I won't get picked on anymore. So I kind of gravitated towards that. So between like, those, guys like Hulk Hogan and those guys, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger was a huge influence to me growing up that, got me into bodybuilding around the age of 11 and kind of took off from there.
Now was there a point in time where you decided that you wanted to pursue wrestling as a career per se?
I mean, since I was a kid, I had always tell people I want to be a professional wrestler when I grew up. Like that was, it was either I either wanted to be, I always wanted to be the wrestler, but I wanted to be a stuntman, an actor. I wanted to be, I wanted to be a lead singer in a band. All kinds of stuff. It's just like, but I loved the entertaining aspect. I love being creative. I'm a creative person, and between acting and I'm a very athletic person. So it was like, I guess that's why wrestling kind of always kept drawing towards me. It wasn't just for the fact of seeing these guys being superheroes and I wanted to become that, but also just because I was very into, acting and, all that stuff. So I could kind of combine sports and acting. And it was like, I mean, what better thing can you do than that's the best way you can combine the two, really. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So yeah, from an early age, I always told people I wanted to, but I didn't take it seriously until after I was graduated college. Yeah.
I read that you were trained at the Monster Factory under, I guess it would have still been Larry Sharp at that time. Can you discuss your process there?
Yeah, absolutely. No. So basically, I just finished up getting my degree at Westchester University for teaching. And but through my whole college career, I had a group of friends that were very super into wrestling. And I mean, that was great. It was like, during the height of the WCW, WWE, WWF at the time, the Monday Night Wars and stuff. And it was just, I mean, there was so much great wrestling going on. And we were so, obsessed with it. I mean, just watching the live shows and then, recording them and then watching them back again and again. And then I'd be watching them and studying them and saying, okay, how do they do this move? How do they do that move? And then we go out and practice in the campus courtyards. and that was just a good time. So I got my degree and started seriously looking, like, while I was in college, like, where can I go? And it just so happened that, the world famous Monster Factory was only 20 minutes from where I was living and teaching. So I called them and I talked to Larry, and he's like, well, buddy, you can come in and do a tryout and see if you got what it takes. And I was like, okay. So went in there and I met him, and he was very friendly. He said, okay, well, I'm gonna do a couple exercises with you and see if you you kind of have some ability. So did the thing, and of course, he's like, I'm very impressed. Oh yeah, it's great. It's like, sure. When can you give me the money? It's like, cause it's a business. And if you have, any talent whatsoever, or even if you don't, there's going to be a way to say, yeah, we can get you in here and start training, because, honestly, they run a business, and, they're probably going to take pretty much almost anyone that walks through the door, I'd say. But yeah, he said, he's like, I see something special in you. And so, whether he's being truthful at that moment or not, who knows? But I felt it went well regardless. But that's to also say, in the business, it's hard to tell who's going to really blossom and who's not. Some people are great athletes and they come from other, sport backgrounds, and they don't really transfer. And then there's some people that have never, they're not really like super athletic people, but they find something that they're good at, a gimmick or something that they can really latch onto, and it becomes, something that really takes off. So I don't think there's any particular one, person, one type of person, like look or ability that can make you be successful in the business. I think it's it could be very versatile. But yeah, he was very nice. And him and Ed Seeley, who was a guy from Canada, he was one of the trainers at the time, and it was a good time. It was a lot of crazy practices, but good time.
So you worked some independent, and then you eventually got involved with Ohio Valley Wrestling. How did that come about for you? That process of getting signed? Yeah.
So when I was training at the Monster Factory, they were really big on not going and doing any independence. Right off the bat. They obviously ran their own promotion, own shows. And I was training with them, and they're right for the fact of, don't go out there when you're totally 100% green and think that you can just go out there and work shows, which I didn't have any delusion that I could. But I started working for the Monster Factory. I think after a couple months, I think they put me on one of the first shows where they had me win like the New Jersey Strongman competition. They did some kind of competition, and I won that thing. And then I think like the very next month, my very first actual match, they put me against Cliff Compton, who, went on to become Domino, in the tag team. And so my very first match was against him for the title, and they were nice enough to give me a push and put the title on me in my very first match. And then I held it, I think, the whole time until I got I guess it had to be like, I guess it was 2 years until I got the opportunity to go try out for OVW. OVW was doing the very first developmental tryout. And they said they were taking 50 people, and it was going to be a week-long tryout with Dr. Tom and WWE people, talent coming in, taking a look, writers and people. And it was a week-long process. Of course, Jimmy Cornette was there because he's one of the guys that was run the booking, and Danny Davis and Rip Rogers, obviously. So when I sent my application in and I sent in all my stuff, I didn't hear back from them. And it was about, I'd say only like a week or so before the camp. and a week to 10 days. And I was like, hey, I got in touch with them, and I talked to Julie, who's Danny Davis's wife, a wonderful person. And I said hi. And I told her my name. I said, hi. I just wanted, I never heard anything back. And if it's just because you guys weren't selecting me, that's fine. But I just want to make sure that you guys got my submission. And she said, what's your name? She said, no, we never got it. She goes, can you send it right away? And I said, yeah, sure. And so I sent it. And the next day I talked to her. She goes, okay, we got it, because I overnighted it. And she goes, we got it. Okay, great. She goes, you look awesome. She's like, oh, make sure, this gets to Danny. I said, okay. And next thing I know, I was lucky enough to become one of those 50 people. And there was a few other good people that came from that and, made it to the WWE, which was great. So, but it was a great time, great experience that week. I mean, I could tell you more about that. It was just very, very intense, but just awesome experience.
What advice did you receive from Mr. Cornette when you were there that made an impression on you? I'm assuming he was still there during your tenure.
Oh yeah. Jimmy, I mean, shoot. I absolutely adore Jimmy. He's one of the, me personally, I know some people have some issue with him. And he could give a crap either way because he's Jimmy, and I love that about him. But yeah, Jimmy, I owe a lot to Jimmy for he went to bat for me. He believed in me. He really saw something in me, and it was just amazing learning from him. I mean, the amount of knowledge that he has, obviously, he's an encyclopedia of wrestling, as everyone knows. And especially when it comes to tag teams, I mean, just the psychology and obviously that's, kind of what I really fell into as a wrestler was, tag teams. And really, there's not really many people you can learn from better, if any, than Jim Cornette. So, when you're asking me, what did he tell me? What did I learn? I mean, it's endless, the lessons I learned from him. But I learned a lot about, selling yourself and, selling, the story and selling, all the little intricate things that make up the story, and not brushing over anything. And it's just really cool that he gave, felt confident enough to give me that opportunity and to teach me the way he did, because he did spend a lot of time, and energy into me. So that's, and I'm grateful for that.
So when you were there, you captured the heavyweight championship. We got a little bit of feedback there. I wonder if that's me or you. You captured the OVW heavyweight championship, and then you formed your tag team with Chad Wicks under a different name. Correct me if I'm wrong. How did you make the transition from a successful singles competitor to that tag team realm?
Well, before that, I was actually in a tag team with Chris Cage, who became Kalen Croft in WWE, and we had a really good run. When I first got up there to OVW, I had done the tryout camp, and I did well at the tryout camp, and I got a call from Jimmy Cornette. It was in February, and he gave me a call in, I guess it was probably mid-April. And he said, "Hey, Tank, Jim Cornette here. Just wanted to let you know that we loved you, and we'd love you to come be a part of things here at OVW and work towards a developmental contract with WWE." I was like, "Awesome." So he said, "How soon can you be here?" And I said, "I'll be there, and I'll be there in 2 weeks, if that's okay." So I went down there, and it was Derby weekend when I moved in. And never really knew much about Kentucky other than that week I spent there. And they took me in, and it was almost like you just became an instant part of a family. It was really awesome. Great people, great locker room, great environment and energy. And Jimmy, my first match actually ended up putting me against Doug Basham, who was the champion at the time. And so, that was really crazy just to go up there and all of a sudden, get a nice push from the start and wrestle, the champion at OVW. And Doug Basham's a great worker. And then the very next week they had me wrestle Randy Orton, who was coming off. He was coming back from an injury and knocking some ring rust off, and so I wrestled Randy Orton, and that was a nice experience. And I was the first guy to take his RKO because he was just wanting to use it since Diamond Dallas Page wasn't anymore. So right after those couple of matches, it was actually like, it wasn't long before they just said, okay, well, we want to put you in a tag team because Simon Dean, who was Nova, he was in a tag team called Adrenaline with Chris Cage, and he injured his knee where he needed surgery. And so since Nova, Mike Bucci, he's from Jersey. Jim Cornette knew the connection, and Mike was like, hey, why don't we just bring Tank in, and he could be my replacement, and we can make it a whole Jersey thing. And between him and Cornette, they talked it out. He goes, that's a perfect idea. And so that kind of really what got me started with the tag team was getting together with Chris Cage, and we became Adrenaline. And our first, I think it might have been our first match we won was at Kentucky Kingdom against Lance Cade and it was Lance Cade and one of the other guys from Bolin Enterprises, and we won the tag belts there. And then from there we just kept fighting and had some feuds with some good tag teams and some great wrestlers. And it wasn't until actually what happened was the way I made the transition was actually I turned on my tag partner because Chad Wicks got signed by the WWE. And I think what happened was they saw, here's a guy that is a similar build, similar look to Tank, and let's put them together, And so the deal was a cousin and kind of get things bubbling between me and my tag partner, kind of getting there, drive a wedge. And then ultimately I turned on my tag partner. But at the time that I turned on my tag partner, I ended up tearing my bicep. I tore my bicep, and which was kind of unfortunate because Stephanie McMahon and the writers came down like a couple of days later, and I was not going to get surgery. I was like, no way, they're coming down. I got to, show up for this. So I wrestled a match with my torn bicep. Stephanie loved it. Tommy Dreamer at the time was doing he was part on the developmental side of things. And she told Tommy, hey, Tommy, I like this guy. We want to bring him up right away. And that's when Tommy told him that I had torn my bicep and I'm going to need surgery. So I had no idea. So Tommy told me, he's like, Stephanie wants to bring you up right now, but I had to tell her. And I said, that's terrible. And he goes, and so Stephanie actually came over to me and said, hey, Tank, don't worry about it. We love what you're doing. You're doing a great job. Just go get your surgery, heal up. And when you're all better and cleared, we got a spot for you. Don't worry. I said, that's awesome. That made me feel a lot better because you never know when you're going to get dropped. You don't know when they're going to just cancel your developmental contract. So during that time, we just wrote it into the storyline. I got my surgery. I was in a cast for 8 weeks, but we wrote it into the storyline that my ex tag partner Chris Cage jumped me in the back, and I came out. But it was like really bad. Like I was obviously making it up, and it was really bad on TV. Like how it was. I mean, bad in a good way. Like I was like faking it, and it was a good time. It was fun, but yeah. So we worked it in. So I actually never missed any time wrestling, even with my torn bicep. And then next thing you know, and which was great because I really got to do more of my promo cutting and my mic skills and all that stuff, which I love being that part of a character, especially as a heel. There's nothing better than being a heel. I mean, it's so much fun. But yeah, so once I healed up, they put us together as the Tolands. And then they made me go get platinum blonde hair because Chad had platinum blonde hair, and we became the Blonde Bombers, and then next thing you know, we're doing that for a bit, and then we got called up and it was pretty crazy how that whole thing happened, because we didn't know what we were doing when we were getting called up.
How did the Dix gimmick come about, and that Chippendale-esque, I guess not esque, but Chippendale, very Chippendale-like presentation come about?
Well, it's funny because when we first got called up, they were originally going to put us with Simon Dean with Nova, Mike Bucci. If they're going to do it, we're going to be like his henchmen. That we're going to be like his lackeys, his henchmen. His muscle, and we looked like perfect gym rats. We had that look. Mm-hmm. But it was weird because all of a sudden they started having us just go out, and they didn't give us a name or anything. We just came out from the crowd after tag matches and would start laying out what other tag team opponents were in there after the match. And so we did that for a few weeks, and they'd, Taz and Michael Cole would be on the, commentary, and they'd be like, who is this guy? Who are these guys? Blah, 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 because we keep running out and messing up matches. We cost, I forget who it was. We cost someone the tag belts. I can't remember. But anyway, it was Heidenreich and Animal. We cost them the tag belts. And, so that became a short little feud. But, but yeah, so when we were in the ring one time, and they actually had already announced us as the Tolands one time. I don't know if Taz did it by accident. He's like, I know that they're Tolands, but then that was 1 week, and then you never heard that again. But it might have even been that week that we ran out, we leveled the people, and then I just hyped up and I ripped off my shirt and my black tank, because we were in black tank, black slacks, and I ripped it off and I just threw it, and I was all hyped up, and then got to the back, and Vince just looked, and he's just like, "What you do with that shirt there?" And you ripped it off, and you're just all manly, and you look like a Chippendale. It's like, I really like that look. It's next week I want you to come back. Just come back with some Chippendale outfits. I just want to see what you look like. And I was like, okay. I was like, I didn't see that coming, but it's, what are you going to do? So, okay. So we did that. We got our seamstress to make up an outfit. And then next week we come back looking like Chippendales. And he's like, I love it. And he's like, okay, that's what we're going to do. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess that's what we're doing. That's what the boss says. And so Stephanie's like, oh, okay, well, if you guys can think of some kind of cool, wrestling name, for the tag team, that would be great. And, have it be around the character and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, so over the week we were thinking, and, talking to Nova, kind of get some ideas, because he's always good with ideas. He's a really awesome guy with bouncing things off of. And then we came down to Weapons of Mass Seduction, which I thought was really cool. I thought it was cool. It's wrestling, it's war, it's it's destruction, and I just thought it was really cool. And I told Stephanie while we were out at the ring and everyone's training, working out, getting warmed up after they put the ring up at one of the shows. And Stephanie's like, "Oh, I like that." And out the corner of my ear, he says, I heard, "Why don't we call him the Swinging Richards?" And that ended up being Michael Hayes said that. And he's like, "I'm gonna go tell Vince that right now. We're gonna make these guys. We're gonna call these guys Swinging Richards. That's great." And of course, the other guys are kissing his ass, going, they kiss asses. So I look at Stephanie. She's like, "Don't worry, I'll handle it. That's okay." I was like, "All right." I was like, "Okay," because don't really want to be a Swinging Richards. I thought my name was, much cooler. But anyway, so about 10 minutes before the show is about to start, Stephanie comes up and she's like, "Okay, so here's what's going on. It's not the Swinging Richards. They said that was too close to Stevie Richards. Then they wanted to call you the Swinging Dicks, and that's too on the nose. And so you guys are just going to be the Dicks." And I was like, all right, I guess we're the dicks. We're the dicks. And I said, in my mind, I'm really already kind of like kind of worried about it right off the bat, because this is when they're just starting to get really family friendly again. And we're on SmackDown, network television at an early hour. And I thought, if anything, I was like, and later on, I told this to Stephanie. I said, Stephanie, this is later. I said, this is a gimmick and a name that should be on Raw, cable television at a later hour where you could get away with more stuff and be more risque. Because for me, if I was going to do this, I instantly had in my mind, okay, well, I want this to be a combination of Val Venus and Ravishing Rick Rude, like that kind of feel to it, where it was a little bit more of the Attitude Era style. But you can't do that. You couldn't do that on SmackDown. So, I was worried about it right off the bat. And so she goes, so you guys are the dicks. And I said, can we spell it DIX? And she's like, unfortunately, no. So there it was. She goes, yeah, and you're going to be James Dick. And I was like, and I said to myself, can I at least be Tank Dick? Like at least Tank Dick, because A, that's who I was, and B, Tank Dick sounds a whole lot cooler than James Dick. Tank Dick, it's just like you're a Tank Dick. Yeah. So, but yeah, so that was it. James and Chad, the Dicks, and that's how that came about. Was not my idea.
All that notwithstanding, you had a very strong push. You mentioned you were laying out teams. I believe in your debut, you ended up laying out the Mexicools, and you seem to be figured in, so to speak. Then you segued into a bit of a program, and correct me if I'm wrong, with Animal and Heidenreich, and had that memorable finish where the baby oil went in the eye, and you guys got the pin. So with that all happening, did you figure you were on to bigger things in terms of maybe getting a shot at the belts, having a run that way, or how did that all play out?
It was a really weird vibe I was getting, because it was like, to me, it was a terrible gimmick. Like as far as where it was, I mean, we could have made it something more, like I said, on Raw, but like we seemed to be getting a little push in the beginning, which was nice. But backstage, it was hard to tell, because they were laughing at the promos I was writing, and I wrote a few really good promos that for vignettes that we were doing, and they were laughing their ass off. And I remember one time, watching Hunter laugh, and then he ran back, and Vince and him were laughing in the office, and they loved it. And then another 15 minutes later, they come back, and the writers say, hey, we got to redo this. We got to cut a lot of this because it's not going through the edit. It's not going through censorship. And, and I was like, and there it was, again, my worry that we're not going to be able to do this the way we could to make it as over as possible. And that was tough. So that kind of played a little bit of a psychological game with me, I think, because I felt like, I'm trying to work with this gimmick and make it what I could, but it's I felt like I was fighting a losing battle to some extent. So there was definitely a push, but between not being able to feel like you can go where you want with it, and then also my tag partner started slowly getting more and more heat. That kind of hurt the situation. Slowed us down for sure.
Yeah, much has been made about that situation with Chad. What do you think the origins of that situation were, in terms of, to my understanding, a lot of the ribbing, if you will, that was in years past, but still around that era, and some of the most monumental ribbers of all time, sort of, to my understanding, targeted him, and he sold for it quite a bit. Was that essentially what happened?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, Chad, I think Chad is a sensitive person. Um, I think he wears his heart on his sleeve a lot, and and also there's his personality. It can be hard to understand, I suppose, because he would always have this smile on, and he's always smiling, and you didn't know if he was being real or disingenuous, or if he's trying to work everybody, like, because it did there was something that didn't seem right with it, and I think he just was. I don't know if he was also just immature at the time, like he didn't have, he's still, like emotionally immature with a lot of things, and he didn't. And he had wrestled plenty. He'd been around, and he had worked around a lot of people, but I just don't think he got it with what to sell and what not to sell. And I think he needed to understand that, like, in the business, sometimes you just gotta go with the flow and suck it up. And when things don't go your way, you rub some dirt on it, you brush it off, and then you keep going, and you just don't let it affect you. And so I think when we started getting ribbed, because that's what happens when you're new in the business. At least it was back then. I know it's probably changed a little bit. The locker room environment's probably changed a little bit since we were there, or a lot of it, especially because of social media and all that, and the whole anti-bullying stuff. But yeah, I mean, as far as it goes, we were getting ribbed, and ribbed in the same ways. Actually, I think a couple of times I got ribbed worse with them, with a few things, but I just no sold it, and I actually made a joke of some of it. Shoot, one time I came back from the match, and my whole suitcase was in the locker room shower with just the water, just shower pouring down into it. I zipped it up with all the water in it, and I rolled it out to the bus with the water still dripping out like it never happened, and water just leaking all the way out. And I just put it on the bus, and that was it. And then the next night, I remember I came back. I had my ring attire, and I was like, "Where are my clothes? They're not in my bag." And I was looking around, and then I look up, and they're glued to the wall up above. So I just didn't say a word. I took them down off the wall right in front of the monitor where all the boys were watching the show. Took them down, put them on, sat in a chair, watched the show. And then at the end of the show, I got up and I held the chair against my ass to make it pretend like it was still stuck to me, like I'm stuck to the chair now. And I started walking out to the bus like that. And the boys laughed. And I think it was right after that, I think it was Benoit came up to me and he said, "Look, here's the deal. You're taking these ribbings like a champ. You're cool. We're cool with us. We like you. We're not gonna bust your chops anymore. But you got to get through to your tag partner. Or like your tag partner's crying like a baby, being a big wuss about things, and he's got to understand this is the business. So that's kind of how that went, and it was also, man, he drew a lot of heat on him with one of the videos that it was a whole thing. He drew some heat to himself when he didn't need to. Yeah, and I warned him about it with this video he wanted to do with dancing with people. He wanted to go dance with this Chippendale guy and learn some dance moves, but it came off very odd, the way he went about it, and him video recording it, and then he thought, "Oh, I'm going to show the boys and think this is going to look great because, hey, look, I'm learning all these dance moves from this guy," and it just came off very odd and weird, and I knew that the boys wouldn't look at it right, because I knew Chad and I knew how he was, but I knew other people didn't understand him, and I think in his head he thought, "This is great. They're going to see how dedicated I am. That I'm like almost like method acting, where I'm really getting into this character. I'm being that person, which is great. It's great, but I just know that it's not going to come off right in front of the boys, especially the old school boys. You know."
So this is going on, and you're still involved in programs. Your tag team seems to be progressing. I understand it came to a head where there was a particular incident involving JBL, The Undertaker, and Benoit, maybe Booker T as well, that kind of ended in an altercation between yourself and Chad. Could you recount that for the Hannibal TV fans so they know the context?
Sure. I'll give the abridged version because it's a long story, but I'll try and make it as quick as possible, and still hit all the main key points. Basically, this video, I mean, Chad already had some heat on him. We were already getting ribbed, but like I said, like some people were taking it better than others. He decided to go and dance with this guy Yanni, like the night before we were leaving for a show overseas, and I think we were going to I think it might have been. Oh, it was Mexico. We're doing not overseas. It was down in Mexico. We were doing a tour down through Mexico, and he was out dancing with this guy Yanni at his house until about 4:00 in the morning. We had a flight around, I think, like early in the morning, like 8 to 10 or something like that. But anyway, and he looks all tired and disheveled, and he's like, I was like, what's wrong with you? He's like, man, I was dancing all night. And I was like, what? Because he invited me to go dance. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to get some good sleep. I'm not going if I need to learn some Chippendale moves, I'll go to YouTube or something, or whatever. But, so I was like, so what's the deal? What do you mean you were dancing all night with him? He's like, here, look, take a look. And he opens up the camcorder and he's showing me, and I'm just looking at him and this guy doing these like dance moves, and like they're being all like seductive looking and stuff. And that's all cool, because that's what you do as a Chippendale. But it just was really weird. And I was like, the boys are not. I was like, Chad, I said, you put that away right now. Don't let other souls see that. I said, you will get roasted. I said, you will be torched if you show that to anyone. Just do yourself a favor, do us a favor. Don't let anyone see that. Okay. He was good with saying okay. Sure enough, we're there, and that I think it was the very same day we're going to a show, and that night, and next thing I know, I see a group of people laughing. They're all circled up and they're laughing, and I looked over and I saw Chad off to the side, and I said to myself, this isn't going to be good. And sure enough, they're all looking at the tape and they're passing it around, looking. And it's going from one guy to the bigger guy, the higher up the chain. And then finally it gets to the Undertaker, and he's looking at it. He just looks at it and just shakes his head, puts his head down, shakes his head, and he just hands it off. Like, I don't even know what to do with that. So sure enough, that night, I'm trying to go to sleep, and I get a call. Hey, Tank, you got to come down to the banquet room. All right. I come down there, and as I walk in, it's all the guys that you mentioned, and plus like Randy Orton and a couple other guys. And they're like, I walk in, and everyone's there, and Chad's there. All right. I think he'd already been there for a minute. And there's one seat open next to the Undertaker. And as I walk in, JBL's like, hey, Tank, welcome to Wrestler's Court. And I was like, fuck. I was like, that's not the place you want to be. No one wants to be in Wrestler's Court, at least not on the end I was on. And there's one seat next to Undertaker, and everyone knows as in Wrestler's Court, the Undertaker is the judge, jury, executioner. And so I walked up and I said, Taker, would you mind if I sit next to you? He said, go ahead, have a seat. All right. So, and I know how they are. They want to drink your ass off until you're dead. And so I wasn't a big drinker. So but I was like, I know if I don't say something, they're going to make me drink. So I was like, hey, you mind if I have a beer? Oh, go ahead. So I had a beer, and I'm drinking a beer. And first thing out of their mouth is, so Tank, if you want to be a wrestler and you're a Chippendale, that's your gimmick. He's like, and Chad wants to go and learn how to be a dancer. Why wouldn't you go and learn how to be a dancer with Chad? And I said, honestly, it it looked a little gay. And to me, like I said, I had nothing against gay people, but it wasn't for me. And it just came off a very uncomfortable feeling for me for that. I mean, and and just put it out there. If you're gay, great. Got plenty of gay friends, love gay people. They're great, whatever. But it's not me. And so they paused when I said that, and there was nothing. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe Chad threw me under the bus for not going to do this. And then they paused, and then they said, you're goddamn right, Tank. Chad, admit you're gay. Admit you're. And, back then they were throwing all kinds of, they're throwing the faggot word around and all that kind of stuff, sissy boy and all that stuff. They're laying into him pretty hard. And my first thought was, oh shit, thank God the heat's off me. Whew, God, man. I was like, that was tough. But then I felt bad for him because they're really ripping into him. But at the same time, I'm thinking, you son of a bitch. I told you. I said, don't do it. Don't do it. And he had to do it. And so that kind of what happened. And so it led from them just destroying him. And then he starts crying, and he's literally crying, and they're making him do jumping jacks while he's crying, so he can calm down, do some jumping jacks, calm down, And I kind of felt bad for the guy, even though he brought it on himself. But in the end, they got to keep pushing. And so they're like, so Tank, you're the one that calls the shots in this Tank team, right? I'm like, that's just, usually that's just, the way it is, and I was kind of the captain of the team. And he's like, how come, Chad, you don't speak up for yourself more? And, they're trying to get his goat. And so they basically try to get him to say he's going to stand up to me and he's not going to take it from me anymore and all this other stuff. So one thing leads to another. And he's like, they get him to finally stand up to me. And I'm sitting down with a beer, and he's like standing up over me. He's like, Tank, from now on, we're equal partners in this, and blah, 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 blah. And I get to call the shots too. And I'm like, Chad, relax. You're making this more than what it is. Just chill out. And he's like, no. And he's like, and they're like, yeah, Chad, that's it. Come on, get him. And then I'm like, come on. And they're like, Tank, how come you guys have never fought? I'm like, well, we never fought. It just never came to it. Why not? I'm trying to work things out, man. He's my tag partner. Got to try and make it work. I'm just trying to play it off. Then out of nowhere, because I knew that they knew that I wanted to probably deck them, because I was so frustrated. They knew I was frustrated, and I tried as best I tried to hide it, but it was pretty evident. But yeah, I mean, then out of nowhere, they kept pushing me. He butts in and says, I'll tell you why we never fought, because my mom always told me to be a bigger man and walk away from a fight. And I was like, oh, did he just say that? And then the other guys, I mean, literally they're throwing napkins up in the air like there's a flag on the play. Like there's a flag on the play. He's like, what? You can't bring your mama into this? There's no moms in wrestling, you faggot ass motherfucker. Once again, saying terrible things to him. But now he's just burying himself more. And they're like, Chad, you need to be a man and stand up to Tank. You guys need to battle this out. You need to just slug it out. And so finally, they get him to the point where he's standing over me again, and he's like trying to, Tank, I'm telling you, da-da-da-da-da. He's like, like he's clenching his fist now, like he's thinking about hitting me. And I'm like, Chad, stop, relax. And he I just see him go like this. He's winking. He starts winking at me and goes, he's like, go with it. Like, like blipping it. Didn't do a good enough job of covering it up, because all of a sudden the boys saw him, and JBL's like, Chad, are you trying to plan a fake fight? Are you trying to work the boys? You can't work the boys. And then they're all like, they all start laughing at him. They start throwing stuff at him and stuff, like, like throwing their napkins and stuff. And like, you just start torturing him again. At this time now, this has been going on for like probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, it felt like. And finally, it's like it's getting late. And I'm like, you guys mind if I use the bathroom real quick? And they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I go to the bathroom. I'm in the bathroom, and you probably know where this is going. As I finish, I'm getting ready to finish up. Chad comes barging into the bathroom, right? And he's like, Tank, you got to help me. You got to help me, please. I'm like, Chad, I don't know what to tell you. You're really burying yourself, man. You're killing yourself. I said, I can't do anything to help you. And he's like, please, please. He goes, please, anything, please. And I was like, no. I was like, please, let me hit you one time. And I was like, are you out of your mind? I was like, yeah, I'm not letting you hit me. I was like, if I let you hit me, then I'm the bitch. And then I'm the one that's, I'm like, that's not happening. I was like, I'm not letting you hit me. And I said, you're going to have to figure this out. And I walk out of the bathroom. As I'm walking out, the boys are walking in, all except for one. And they're all walking in there to go do their business. And I'm sitting there and I'm standing outside the door. It's right next to the elevator thinking, I'm right next to the elevator. Hopefully they could just say, let's call it a night, and I could jump on there and get out of here. So I wasn't going to leave without permission. So eventually I'm waiting and Chad comes out and Chad starts pleading with me again. And this time he pleads to the point and where I shit you not, he got on his hands and knees and he said, please, Tank, please let me hit you one time. Please. I'll do anything. Please, please, please. And in the meantime, I'm like, what's going on here? Why aren't these guys coming out? And sure enough, as he walked out, he locked them in the bathroom behind him. The latch was on the outside and he locked them in. And I guess so he could have some words with me to beg and plead. And I was like, I had no idea. And then all of a sudden, I guess it was the one guy who wasn't in there. And the way this is explained is I remember Undertaker explains like on the bus, he's like, yeah, so I go to open the bathroom door with the guys and I open it. Little bastard locked us in. which is, and you would think like, oh, now he's really buried. No, they all loved it. They loved the fact that he got one over on them and locked them in the bathroom. So he went from being totally buried to totally over with them, like for that brief moment. And they thought it was awesome. He ended up getting them in the end, right? But Orlando Jordan wasn't in the bathroom. He came in and he's like, oh, the door's locked for the bathroom. He goes to unlock it to go in the bathroom and all the guys come out. And as they come out, they walk out and they see Chad on his knees begging me. And I was like, God, this is not a good look. And sure enough, and they're like, all right, this is ridiculous. And so we all got on the elevator. They're like, we'll call it a night. So we get on the elevator. Now he's crying. And he's in the elevator. And they're all like elbowing him, pushing him, making him like a pinball around between the guys. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And now he's like hysterically crying pretty much. And I feel really bad for him. And I'm actually worried for his emotional well-being at this time. So some of the guys are getting off at their floors. And I was like, I got to see this kid back to his room because, I just don't know what kind of frame of mind he's in. And I know he was kind of like fragile and broken maybe. And so I was like, let me walk him back. So I walked him back to his room and he's crying and he starts crying on my shoulder. And he's like, Tank, I'm so, what do I do? What's wrong? Why doesn't anyone, why is this happening? I'm like, it's happening because you're letting it happen and you're feeding into it. I said, you need to totally no sell everything. I said, it doesn't matter who they are. You got to just no sell and just go along with it. And he's like, okay. I was like, just please. I was like, I know you think that I'm like calling all the shots. I said, but I'm just trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. I mean, I'm older than the kid, I mean, I think I'm significantly older than him enough to be like, all right, I think I had a little bit better of a head on my shoulders. So anyway, I'm just trying to help him. And he's like, okay. I said, so tomorrow, just play it cool. Okay. So as soon as he gets on the bus, they kick him off the bus. They make him ride a taxi behind the bus to the arena. And while he's in there, I guess they got him so shit-faced, he puked all over the back of the cab. And now they're pissed at that because they had to pay the cab driver plus money for cleaning. So, yeah. So because I think JBL paid for that. So yeah. So that was that. And then that night, we went and wrestled, and I remember when we wrestled, there was just a lot of heat in the back, and it was very awkward. And I remember it was I remember on the, you see who's wrestling what matches, and we were wrestling. I think we were like wrestling either in Mexico Cools or Spanky in London or someone, I can't remember, but we were wrestling them, and it said, Mexicools versus a dick and a pussy. So yeah, so now he lost his dick's name. Now he's just a pussy, right? So we're out there wrestling, and I remember I'd be in the ring working, whoever I was working, I'd tag out, and as I tagged out, he would come in, and over the whole PA monitor, the whole sound system, you would hear a baby start crying. So every time he was in the ring, they'd play a baby crying over the sound system. So obviously, there's only certain people that had that kind of pull, Undertaker being one of them. So I'm not sure if it was Taker or someone, one of the higher ups who calls the shots, decide to let's have the baby crying over the loudspeaker, which obviously it was a house show, so it wasn't televised, but yeah. So that was happening. And I just remember seeing like a Steamboat, Ricky Steamboat off to the side, because he was our agent for that match. He's just sitting off to the side, just laughing, and all the guys are laughing. It was something. I was like, oh my God, here we go. So yeah, so that's kind of what happened that night before. And then that night after the match, I am again trying to go to sleep, and sure enough, I get a call again, and it was Benoit, and he's like, "Hey, your partner's up to it again." I'm like, "The hell, my partner's up to it? He's probably just trying to fucking, lay low." Actually, who knows? He might not have been laying low. If I was him, I would try to go right back to my room and not answer the phone. I don't care. I was just, but yeah, he's like, okay, I'm going to be up. I'm going to come get you, bring you down to Decatur. So now we're in Mexico City, and this is a really nice hotel, huge banquet room we were in for the private catering and everything. and I come down, and now this time, instead of it just being one round table with the big time guys there, it was all the cast, all the crew, everybody down to the doctor, right? And they're all there, and they're all like, drinking. It's like all of a sudden it's a party down there, and there's food and drinks, and I see like money on the table in the middle of tables and stuff like that. And I'm like, and once again, I get brought to the big table, and there's one chair next to Taker. And so I'm Taker, can I have a seat? Yeah, go ahead. Can I have a beer? Sure, here. All right, thank you. And it goes right back to the same thing that happened the night before. Now, Chad, and this is like, it gotten a little bits and pieces of things going on, but the quick version is got right back to where it was. Here he is over me again. Tank, you better listen to me. I'm telling you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, Chad, sit down. We talked about this, man. You got to just relax, man. Relax. He's like, no, you got to listen. And they got him liquored up pretty good. And I think he was just trying to I guess he's trying to get the heat off him. I guess he's trying to find a spot. Wrong time, wrong place, wrong person to do it with. And I was like, Chad, sit down. So I'm drinking a beer. I'm like literally leaning back on two legs of a chair, on the back legs of a chair, drinking a beer. And someone says something to me, and I turn my head over there, and sure enough, wow, he hits me. He hits me right across the jaw. I fly back off my seat because I'm already leaning back on the two back legs of the chair. I do like a back roll out of the chair. And next thing I know, I'm in a front face lock. And I'm like, I go, damn it, Chad. You made me spill my beer, and then and now I gotta hit you, and so we're like, I'm like, I wrestling up, I get out of this front face hold. I said, what the hell's wrong with you? I told you gotta chill out, man. I said, I'm not gonna lose my job and fight you because of something stupid that you can't get over. And I said, so knock it off. And I smacked him. I gave him a quick smack across the face, and I just enough to. I was hoping I'd just smack some sense into him. And second, I just want to say I'm not your bitch. So, and I was hoping, okay, that hopefully that's enough. That's enough. And I sit back down, and I said, I'm sorry, what were you saying? And I acted like it didn't even happen. And when I did that, the whole place started laughing. And JBL's like, oh, Chad, oh, you knocked Tank clear off his chair and Friggin', he got right back up and smacked you in the face like the bitch you are. Oh, Tank. Oh, that's hilarious. I got to cheers you on that, man. And he's leaning across Undertaker to cheers me. Chad knocked the beer out of my hand. So I'm like, I just wanted to go away. And I'm like, Chad knocked the beer out of my hand. And Undertaker's like, here, take mine. I'm like, okay, Mr. Taker. And so I lean over and I'm going to toast JBL because I'm just wanting this to end. And sure enough, as I'm doing it, I see out of the corner of my eye, I see Chad winding back again. And I said, and I stopped. I was like, whoa. And I catch him and he sees me catch him and he goes, psych. And I'm like, what did he? I was like, what? Psych. And everyone's like, psych. I was like, they're like, you were about to sucker punch him. You were about to sucker punch him. And sure enough, I'm like, I was like, okay, I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen. And so I go to lean across and cheers JBL. Wham! He hit me again. Now, that's shame on me. I should have just, been smart to it. But I thought he realized, okay, not the smart move. You got caught. And sure enough, he hit me. And this time I just stumbled back a little bit. I said, now I got to kick your ass. So he's like almost, I swear to God, doing the best, like Ric Flair, begging off, I'm tied out there. And I just was like, nah, bop, bop, bop. I just caught him 3 times, busted his nose, his eye, and then put his teeth through his bottom lip, which actually cut my finger wide open down to the bone and tore a ligament. And I just went on top, and as I was getting ready to pound on some more, he was already snoring like a baby, just knocked out. And but I was just like, I guess at that point I was just seeing red. So I jumped, but then the guys pulled me right off, so I didn't get any other shots, which I'm glad I didn't. But they picked him up. He's wearing an all-white button-down shirt. I remember this. And he's just gushing. It's just like blood all down his shirt. I'm like, Jesus, what the hell is going on here? I'm like, this is supposed to be the bullshit, that you write stories and you do in the ring. And, I said, but this isn't supposed to be real, real life, it's a stupid shit. And, and so it was Jamie Noble and I think it was like Matt Hardy. They pick him up and the guys are like, get him, take him back to his fucking room. He's a disgrace. Get him out of here. Shut up, Siri. So yeah, and that was it. So they took him up, and then they came over to me, and they came over with all this money, and here, you deserve this. You deserve this. All that money on the tables were people taking bets on are they going to fight? If they fight, who's going to win? How long will the fight take? And all this other. It was like, so they gave me a whole bunch of money, and I'm like, okay, well, and I'm like, I think I need a bandage. My whole hand was just gushed. And luckily the doctor was there. He goes, I had a feeling this was going to happen. Let me take a look. And I had ruptured my ligament in there. He goes, oh, you tore your ligament. There you go. So he goes, okay, who wants to see me repair a ligament and stitch him up? And they're like, oh, we do. So the boys are all standing around while he gets out his medical kit. And I'm thinking to myself, he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to put some Novocaine in here to keep it from hurting as I stitch you up. And I'm like, watch me be the little bitch now and scream when they put the needle in my in my hand to give me the Novocaine. I'll be like, ah, no. But yeah, so they were all watching while he stitched me up, and then the following week it was so infected I almost had to lose my finger because of yeah. So that was the abridged version, believe it or not. But as you could tell, I could already I could talk.
So after this, you had a match against a handicap match against the Boogeyman, and then they released you. Was that at the time was that framed that the fight was the cause of that, or how was that end of the relationship with WWE at that time presented?
Well, I mean, it was funny because I was just getting a worse and worse feeling as time went on. It's like, you hear things like JR saying, the dicks. Oh man, sorry about your luck. That's got limited shelf life. That kind of thing. And all you can think at that time was, okay, how can I survive this enough to make it to the next gimmick? where, all of a sudden you become someone else, and you could kind of put this behind you, because that's, Kane didn't want to be the dentist, he didn't want to be Isaac Yankem, and then there's lots of people that did gimmicks that they didn't want to do. And I thought, okay, I was trying to rationalize with myself saying, okay, well, hopefully this is just just a little bit of a rough start or a rough gimmick to what could become something better later, where I could show my true potential, whether it be in a tag team or singles. And hopefully I'll get that opportunity. So I was just getting a worse and worse feeling. And then, so after that whole fight happened, I was like, I felt like I'm at the bottom, and it couldn't really get any worse. And I just felt like things were already kind of, coming to an end. And, also, not getting the same push we were getting, and being relegated to some other matches and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is obviously not heading in the right direction. So when we had the whole thing with the Boogeyman, I was like, all right, I have a feeling this is it, And I was right, and I love Boogie. So I mean, it was cool that my last match in there was with him, because he's a good friend, and I just love the guy. And I'll tell you, and going back to something previous that I said earlier, there's some really athletic people in the business, but it doesn't always translate to wrestling. Boogeyman is an extremely athletic person, great athlete. Wrestling wasn't his strong point as far as from a technical standpoint, but he's someone who got over with his character and his charisma, and it's just his overall awesome workability and attitude. So, I give all the credit to someone like him, who really, made the most out of his abilities and took it to places where, some people I don't think believed he could take it. So he's awesome. So, yeah. So I'm happy that I got that last match with him. So, yeah.
Recently, Chad was on this podcast and made a statement that he would be interested in perhaps reforming a team with yourself and having that run in WWE that was admittedly cut short. How would you feel about that in 2023, even if it meant teaming on an independent level before taking a run at the Fed again?
Man, I got a lot of mixed feelings about Chad, man. I think he's just trying to find a place, find himself in this world. I know he's really latched on to religion to help with that, and that's great if that's what does it for you and what helps you. I feel like whatever you can, anchor yourself to get grounded and feel like you're okay, and that's good, and find your place. We were supposed to do an appearance down in Maryland back in April, and it was planned for a long time. And we had a second shot in September doing it with the same promoter, and like meet and greet and all that stuff. And then it was like a week before the event. No, not even. I think it was like maybe even half a week. And the promoter finally gets in touch with me. He's like, "Tank, man, I'm sorry. I got to cancel you guys. I cannot get in touch with your partner. He's ghosted me for the longest time. I can't get in touch with him. I want to book his travel. I want to book his hotel, and I can't get in touch with him, get his information." And I just, it's funny. I had a feeling that was going to happen because, he just goes MIA. And so you never know where and when he'll be someplace, and when he's there, what kind of frame of mind he'll be in. And I just think he's got a lot of things going on in his life. So it's tough. And for me, I'm just trying to be a good dad, and and just enjoy the wrestling business, and not have drama. So I think he kind of brings some craziness to the table, and unpredictability. Like I like surprises as much as the next person, but I like the good surprises, and I don't like the surprises that are going to stress me out and wonder if I'm going to have someone that's reliable and going to be there to show up for an event, whether it's a meet and greet or getting in the ring. Because, I mean, that costs not only a payday, but it also costs you reputation, and I don't want to attach myself to something that's not going to have a good reputation. And I want to be someone that, promoters look at and be like, okay, we booked them, they're going to be there, and it's going to be a good match. So at this time, until I could see otherwise that he's got his act together, I mean, I can't say that I'd want to do any events with him. But I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't rule it out if he kind of got it together, or at least showed me he got it together. Not that he has to prove anything to me, but I mean, if I'm going to put my reputation and I'm going to get out there and work or do an event, I want to know that it's going to go well and that it's going to actually happen. So yeah, he still got some heat with me. I put him on blast on Facebook when he stood up the promoter and myself, because A, I was looking forward to doing it. And B, like I said, that my name was on that got canceled, and I don't like that. It's not professional. I don't care what excuses there are. You gotta let the promoter know well ahead of time if there's going to be an issue. And then 3, hey, it was a payday. I missed out on it. So no one likes to miss out on a payday. So yeah. And last, of course, and most important, I knew I had fans that were going to be there, and they were excited to see me, and I was excited to see them, and that's obviously the most important thing, because shoot, it's like everyone says, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, and it's true, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. We seem to have gone through our time tank, but I want to give you an opportunity. Thank you for coming on tonight, being so generous with your time, to let the fans know if you have anything coming up or where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah. Well, I have my own apparel company. I do custom apparel. I do a lot of merch for wrestlers. T-shirts, mainly T-shirts. Obviously, wrestlers are always selling their T-shirts, but I do that for like wrestlers, bands, restaurants, gyms, bars, whatever. I have a good running business. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me on that, you can either find me on Facebook, or you could find me on Instagram. That's Tank Toland. You could probably find me both, either John Toland or Tank Toland. Or if you want, you could always shoot me a message at info@apexcustomapparel.com. That's the name of my company, Apex, like the apex of a mountain or whatever, customapparel.com. So info@apexcustomapparel.com. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. And then other than that, looking forward to getting out and doing some more shows, in the coming months, and, just keep having a good time in the ring until I can't do it anymore.
Well, thank you very much for coming on tonight. Greatly appreciated, and we'll stay in touch to keep current with your appearances and comings and goings. Fans, that's it for another edition of the Great North Wrestling Podcast with Tank Toland of the Dicks. Appreciate you tuning in. Take care and see you soon.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates.